guys? Jim here from DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we're going to take a trip through memory lane with the Atari 2600. Booting this up brings back really a lot of memories from my childhood. Yeah, the Sega Genesis was the console I grew up with. It was my first console. Well, it was my brother's, but I eventually took it over. But from time to time, we'd whip out this bad boy, and I'd sit there for hours playing games like Jungle Hunt, and Frogs and Flies, and Asteroids. You know, a bunch of the classics. Originally released in 1977 as the VCS, the 2600 is one of the most important consoles of all time. While it's not the first video game console, it really was the one that brought the arcade home and helped make video gaming popular. Sure, it was not nearly as popular as it is now, but it still wound up selling over 40 million units over its 14-year life cycle, stretching from 1977 until 1991. As an adult, I still have an affinity for the system and all the classic games on it. Being a fan of classic Atari gets harder as the years go on, and really, the games and hardware aren't getting any younger. Most games you find in the wild need to be extensively cleaned in order to work. The controllers, well, it's hard to find a working one, and the RF-only output is all but obsolete. On CRT TVs it looks okay, but even if you can find an HD TV that supports it, it just looks like crap on modern TVs, and it doesn't help that CRTs aren't being produced anymore, so being a fan of the 2600 is getting harder and harder. Atari did try to keep up the success with consoles like the 5200, the 7800, the Lynx handheld, and the Jaguar, but let's face it, a lot of those are crap and many of them did not live up to the legacy of the original console. By the mid-90s, Atari was pretty much just a developer and publisher, but that wouldn't completely stay that way forever.
By the early 2000s, Atari was kind of an oddity. Old collectors loved them, maybe your parents had an old 2600, but they really weren't in the public eye outside of Dragon Ball games. So, they got a little creative. In 2002, they teamed up with Jakks Pacific and they came out with this guy. This is a plug and play. And what is it? Well, it's a controller with 10 games built in. It runs off AA batteries. It has almost all the normal options you would expect from Atari at the time. And it's got a decent replica of the controller itself. It's a little stiff and it's made out of the hard plastic as opposed to the molded rubber. But if you compare it to an actual Atari 2600 controller, not bad. Sure, it's a little thicker, a little wonkier, but while this is obviously better, for the 20 to 30 bucks that this was at release, not a bad deal. By the mid-2000s, the plug-and-play market was doing pretty well for itself. So well that Atari decided to step its game up and release the Flashback series. This is the Flashback Model 2. It came out in 2005 and is widely considered to be the best of the entire run. Why is it the best? Well, because it uses actual Atari hardware inside of it. Atari hardware is so close that people actually mod these, and they'll install a connector pin right here and use it as a de facto 2600. It's pretty awesome. On forums, it's kind of known as a 2600 on a chip, and out of all the runs of these, it's pretty much considered to be the best one you're going to get. So, let's do something we never do on this site and do an unboxing and show you what's inside. When you open this bad boy up, you actually get a nice little package. First thing you get is a decent little instruction manual to tell you what to do with the console. You get the console itself, which really does a good job of mimicking the 2600, the original. So instead of the switches, you have these buttons here. The console's extremely light. It's maybe 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds tops. And sure, the buttons can feel a little cheap, but overall, I'm fine with the design of it. And of course, gotta love the fake wood stain. Also, you get the power cord, and you get 2 replica 2600 controllers. So let's go back to our original Atari controller right here. And I mean, aside from the Atari logo, it's almost exact except for, wear and tear. The buttons are a lot closer than even the original plug and play, though it might be a little bit mushier than the original. Also, once again, it uses a hard plastic for the joystick as opposed to the molded rubber. But let's face it, these controllers are getting to be 30, 40 years old at this point. It's nice to have something that can be a legit replica. Now that we took a look at what's in the box, let's take a little bit closer look at the console itself. So when you take a look at this bad boy, the first thing you think of is, well, it's just like the original Atari 2600. Everything you have from the original switches are here. So you get power, your reset button, select the switch between the game modes, and your left and right controller difficulty settings. Very cool that they included all this in here. On the back, you get your power input, you get your left and right controller sticks, and you can choose between color and black and white TVs, just like an original. Pretty cool. And also, luckily, thanks to the 9-pin connector port right here, you can play these with a good old-fashioned Sega Genesis controller. And trust me, these controllers aren't bad that come with the console, but this is the guy you want to use. This is the tits right here. If I had one minor gripe, it would be the fact that the AV cord is hardwired in. So make sure you're pretty gentle with it, because if you screw up your AV cord, you're pretty much out of luck. It comes in the standard composite video and mono sound. And why mono? Well, considering the original 2600 was RF only, this is the best you're going to get. Alright guys, now that we took a look at the console, tune in next week where we start looking at the first 10 games that comes in this 40 game set. Until then guys, cheers.